Welcome. Okay. Might be a few more people coming in, but we'll go ahead and get things started. So those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason Murphy. I'm a teacher with Against the Stream, regularly teaching on Wednesday nights. We've been going through a bit of a series of working with the paramis. And yeah, so we'll continue with that theme tonight. We'll start with a meditation. We'll sit for about 30 minutes. And then, the best you can to try to have the least amount of distraction. Sometimes it's tough when you're at home. We're doing this at home thing, the phone may be on or someone's in another room, or just doing the best we can to take some time for ourselves. Maybe it's been a busy day, maybe it's been a boring day, who knows, right? But just to take a good 30 minutes, settling in. I'm going to give a little bit of instruction tonight, a little more than last week, but some instruction really kind of about kind of sensory perception. I'm going to work with the parami of truthfulness. And part of that is learning to be receptive to our own truth or to the Dharmic truth. And one of the ways it's talked about or it's taught to do that is to, focus on not only our attention on the breath, but also some aspect of contact. So whether it's, sometimes when I sit, I have my thumb and my forefinger connected, kind of like resting on my lap. And that sometimes is a point, a place where I'll kind of bring my awareness. Particularly if I get kind of lost in some kind of thoughts or proliferation or story. So that's a suggestion. Otherwise, just kind of hands on the thighs or wherever you rest, wherever you're resting your hands is a good place to have a point of contact. For some people, kind of holding their, putting their palms together and their thumb, and then using the thumb contact as a place to kind of reference to. So we'll, just you find your own way with that. Okay. So let's go ahead and find a posture that's workable, that's sustainable, one where you can feel relaxed and alert. Perhaps bringing in some intention for your sit this evening. Perhaps that intention could be around truth. This kind of inward seeking truth. The truth that's found within the Dharma. Or this kind of receptivity to experience. And so settling in with a posture. So you're sitting in a chair, maybe feeling the feet on the floor, or if you're sitting on a cushion, feeling the contact points. Opening to the comings and goings of sound. Aiming the attention on this or towards this experience of breathing. Perhaps making contact with the experience of breathing, whether it's the rise and fall of the chest or the expansion and contraction of the belly. the tip of the nose, the nostrils. So the invitation is for the next few moments, just really allowing the mind to rest in the body, rest in this experience of breathing. Allowing the breath to be an anchor. Sometimes it's helpful to use a few simple words to connect the breath here in this present time experience with the mind. Something as simple as breathing in, breathing out. Then perhaps expanding the awareness to the felt sense of the breath in the body, whether that's the tip of the nose, the expansion and contraction of the chest, or the lungs, or the rise and fall of the belly. Relax. Observe. Allow. Relaxing into each new breath. Observing the arise and fall of the breath. The sensations in the body. Touch points. And then allowing whatever arises to stay for a time and pass away. Whenever we recognize that perhaps the attention has wandered off, with a sense of friendliness or kindness with the mind, aiming the attention back, using the touch points, the anchor of the breath, some simple words. Each breath, each moment, arising, staying for a time, and passing away. The invitation is to expand this awareness out to the nervous system, the sensations of the body, perhaps the affective feeling tones, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Again and again, recognizing when the attention wanders off, and with a sense of friendliness or kindness with the mind, aiming the attention back, anchoring in the breath and the body. Perhaps extending out to the touch points, the nervous system, the senses. allowing the truth of this moment to be experienced without judgment or criticism, without even commentary. as we settle deeper and deeper into this present time experience, can we open, become more receptive to the nervous system, to the mind, to the different sense doors. Perhaps asking ourselves, can we sit in the truth of this present moment? Just what's happening. Just what's being experienced. So, that was whatever that was like for you. And in this tradition, like with Against the Stream, we often kind of open up, and oftentimes I open up for questions or reflections, and I'll do that later. But for the first, I don't know, maybe a year or so, I sat with a sangha, and they never opened up for questions or reflections. And I asked one of the teachers later, after I had started to teach or training to teach, why that was. And what they said is that, we all have our own experience. And sometimes when we open up to questions or reflections after the sit, it can taint another person's experience, or there can be some doubt, or some of the hindrances can take hold, and that made a lot of sense to me. That being said, I also feel like it's important to recognize and see the similarities in our minds too, and that even though we have very different experiences from meditation to meditation, over a period of time, we begin to see that the mind is just doing what the mind does, and it has a little bit of a different, there's different conditioning based on each of our experiences. So sometimes, I feel like it's very important, I think, to not evaluate each sit, but to just have it be what it was. And I mean, in the times where I practiced in Asia, there was, no kind of questions about the meditation practice. And I never knew what anyone else was. I mean, it'd be days I wouldn't hear what was happening in other people's minds. It would only be relating to my own mind. And in some ways that can be useful, in the sense of the topic tonight being truthfulness. And the kind of a non-judgmental awareness of what's going on, and what are the tendencies, what are the aspects of our own mind. The theme of truthfulness as a parami, well, I think it has a few different meanings. And actually, even just kind of contemplating this, I was trying to pull together some thoughts around what to say tonight. I realized that, well, actually, just how central truth or truthfulness really is to the Buddha Dharma, to practice. Even the word Dharma really means truth, like seeing the truth. Whose truth? What truth, right? So, I mean, my favorite translation of the Dharma is truth in nature. So, realizing or recognizing truth in nature. So, in the nature of the mind, in the external nature, the internal nature of this kind of mind-body process. And I found a list that was kind of like a breakdown. Sometimes you'll find, if you can like Google things, and there's different, some people, like different teachers, make these kind of cheat sheets. I found a cheat sheet for the paramis, and it actually gave a few different translations. I think I will go through and then talk specifically about truthfulness, and then talk a little bit more about some of what I found in the Ajahn Sucitto book. So the word parami, which is often translated as perfection, which I've never really liked, and I talked about that before. just because I feel like in our Western society, this idea of perfection and perfectionism, and it can cause, obsession and a lack of perfection. Uh, this kind of striving, like over efforting, or something about not good enough also, I think, can be tied into some of that. So this translation, this came from, I think it's so it's BuddhistInquiry.org, but the thing I'm looking at came from Barry Buddhist Institute, or the Institute of Mindfulness Studies, in Barre, Massachusetts. So pretty well known. That's a hub over there on the East Coast. But anyway, they describe the parami as completeness instead of perfection. So like to complete a quality. The word para, meaning beyond, and then another root of parama, meaning kind of highest or supreme. And so if that fit, I like it better. I like the idea of to completely understand, to completely master these qualities. And I'm just going to go through all of them because it breaks each one down in characteristic, function, manifestation, and then proximal cause. So we'll just go through, spend a little bit of time, then I'll talk about truthfulness. So giving, or generosity, being the first of the characteristics. And the major kind of benefit is relinquishing. So letting go of basically greed is what we're often talking about. And the softening of the heart. This is a time of year where there's a lot of kind of, people have a lot of different stuff around kind of giving and presence. And sometimes people really get into it. And sometimes people feel like it's never good enough, or, I don't have enough money, or there's like this scarcity mentality. This kind of letting go of the having to give, but instead giving from a generous heart, I think, is what is being talked about here. So then the function is it dispels greed from that which can be given away. And then the manifestation, non-attachment. So that's also part of kind of this letting go or relinquishing, is the non-attached appreciation of having certain things, and the wishing for the well-being of others. So that can be in the giving. So it's the giving and the receiving. So the other being virtue, or sometimes it's called morality, precepts. We often talk about them as precepts, or integrity. So this, the characteristic is composure, to compose oneself instead of kind of being crazy, or spilling over, or just, there's the opposite of to be in composure, is to be kind of, I don't know, a shambles or something. And then the function is to have blameless conduct. And I talked about this before, or impeccability is another word that gets used in Buddhism a lot. And then the manifestation is what they call moral purity. Two words I don't like, particularly together. I really like the understanding of ethical integrity. In other words, living from an ethical, integrous way. And then the proximal cause is that, we would be actually freed from shame or moral dread, living close to the precepts. I'll circle back to the precepts because some of them have to do with truthfulness. So then there's renunciation. which, the characteristic is restraint, to restrain basically the hindrances, to restrain kind of craving or greed, or to work in that way. And then it's the function is to see the unsatisfactoriness of sense pleasures. The manifestation is to lessen kind of sensual attachment. So one of the primary causes of our suffering is craving for sense pleasure. And then the renunciation is often born out of some kind of spiritual urgency. And then also the awareness of pain, of the awareness of the pain of desire. So the kind of seeing, by renouncing something, by letting something go that we, are really attached to, we can then we can begin to see and free ourselves from the pain of kind of wanting. So then there's wisdom. Wisdom bringing the characteristic of clarity. The function is to kind of illuminate. We can begin to kind of see more clearly, as we've talked about. Non-confusion as the manifestation. And then concentration, insight into the Four Noble Truths being the proximal cause. Energy striving, the characteristic. And then we've talked about this before, this word virya, effort, energy. For the function is fortifies practice, right? So strengthens practice. So even striving for a skillful or wholesome goal, one would say. And then, so again, spiritual urgency, right? Faith in the Four Noble Truths. The patience, acceptance, cultivates endurance, helps us to manifest tolerance, and then seeing things as they are, which is what we talked about last week. The one that we'll kind of focus a little bit more on today is truthfulness. Right? So the benefit, or the characteristic that we're kind of working with is non-deceptiveness, and the idea of cultivating authenticity with our experience, with ourselves. The well-being of others is, the manifestation of kind of excellence, kind of being the best you can be, I guess, And then honesty is the proximal cause, truthfulness. I guess I'll continue. So determination, we have this kind of steadfastness, which I'll talk more about next week, sustains clarity, helps to build tenacity, again, addresses the kind of spiritual urgency, and also the proximal cause is that there's these factors of enlightenment, and determination is one of the factors of enlightenment. Loving kindness is the next one. Friendliness promotes the welfare of living beings, removes resentment. Develops kindness, and the proximal cause is seeing the good not only in ourselves but in others. And then equanimity, the manifestation of neutrality and impartiality, the subsiding of desire or wanting things to be a certain way. And then also the proximal cause is understanding of karma. So this is just a list, and I don't know, I thought I would found it somewhat interesting as I was looking today at some of the different ways in which actually other writers and teachers and people have talked about these paramis. So I wanted to kind of bring that in. And then I was thinking of truthfulness. And actually, I've had a little bit of difficulty with this personally, but also just as like this quality, what is truthfulness in the Dharma? And I feel like it plays out in a few different ways. So some of the ways I've thought about, so truthfulness is related to the precepts. And the precepts help guard us from, basically creating more mental affliction. And that's kind of the idea, is that when we follow the precepts, which are basically not harming, not lying or stealing, being wise with our sexuality, and abstaining from drugs and alcohol, that these are a form of protection. And so truthfulness, in a sense, is also a form of protection from the kind of affliction of guilt or remorse, being deceptive outwardly, but then also part of, I think, what's talked about here is being deceptive internally. The ways in which we deceive ourselves and trick ourselves and justify or rationalize why it's okay to do this or that. So one of the, so a couple of the ways, so obviously stealing or lying is a direct kind of moving against honesty, being truthful. So I feel like so much of what maybe is pointed to in this, the completing of this quality for ourselves, is part of it is just like a truthful recognition. And so Ajahn Sucitto writes about kind of this in this way, that this process, truthful recognition, clears the mind of hindrances such as restlessness, confusion, doubt, or greed. Then the mind's awareness can shift to the steadiness of meditative concentration. So I was thinking about that in my own practice. The first, period of time, and it comes and goes, right? It ebbs and flows. The clarity or the calmness that can happen, the steadiness that can happen within the mind through meditation. I assume that you've experienced this to some degree. Otherwise, like we've talked about before, why would you continue to torture yourselves, right? But living in this way of non-deception is also seeing the habits of mind and the ability to kind of see how we cause our own suffering even. So that truthfulness is also meant to kind of even admit when we fall short of our ideals. That this is part of what I think is talked about in truthful recognition to ourselves, and breaking free from self-deception. And this, we can expand this out even to like breaking free of the self-deception of even just the identity of self, right? The egoic self. Or breaking free of the self-deception of karma, or the deception around impermanence, where we don't see clearly these types of things, or the, like I said before, the cause of suffering. So the power of truth is that it gives you a firm ground and an ability to stand, acknowledging an error, and investigate the suffering or the confusion or the pain that happens in our lives. So it's this kind of stripping away, this in some ways maybe even coming out of denial of our processes, programs, conditioning. I also think it's helpful to look at it that way, to look at it as conditioning, conditioned habitual behavior that really is kind of formed, at least for the first part of our lives, or until we find the Dharma, in denial. So kind of coming out of, or truthful recognition of the ways in which we are in denial or deceive ourselves. I like the word recognition, and I think of it as recognition. So to recognize. So when we can see something, so truthful recognition is seeing, and acting out of, say, greed, or even being deceptive to another. So this is kind of shifting to really some of the external truthfulness, which is, obviously kind of being honest, right? To try to be honest with ourselves, to be honest with others. But that doesn't always land well. Maybe you probably have heard of the term like brutal honesty, right? So honesty without compassion is brutality, and I agree. Yet this kind of truthfulness that is talked about in this parami, that Ajahn Sucitto talks quite a bit about in his book, really points to this kind of like paying attention or giving attention to when we are either shrinking our truth, or we're holding our truth back, or our feelings back in relation to another, as a protection, perhaps a protection for ourselves, because we don't want to be judged for having an opposing view, or we don't want to hurt someone else's feelings. So we might hold back on what our truth is. And there's different kind of ways in which I'm sure you can think about that we do that. So this kind of truthful recognition doesn't necessarily mean having to blurt out every time we disagree with somebody in a conversation, especially if they're family or friends. Or but what I think it does mean is to recognize for ourselves. And then to, like I was pointing to kind of pay attention within our own practice, to pay attention to our nervous system, and in what ways do we tense up. So Ajahn Sucitto gives us some reflection and some action, some practice, which is one of the things I like about this book, is that there's like meditations, and there's kind of actions or ways that we can bring this into our lives. So this is what he writes. He writes, notice the times when in a conversation, or in thinking or remembering something, you get fidgety, or shrug, or turn away, or enact some kind of deflective movement. Try instead to soften that reflex. Come into your body and relax. This will help you to allow an uncomfortable truth to enter and pass. This truth isn't necessarily a truth about the words that are being spoken, but the truth of how you are feeling. If you stay aware with that and steady your mind in the awareness of the feeling, you will be able to speak your own truth. So I feel like that's kind of about all I have. I mean, what I'll do is I'll open up for questions or comments about what's been shared, and we can perhaps have some further conversation about it. So I'll open it up to you all. Let me kind of shift this here. So there we go. So I can see those of you who are here. And there is let's see, can you post the link Oh, to Barry. Can I post the link from BCBS, the Buddhist Center? Yeah, I will. I'll put it up there. Let me see if I can just pull it right now. Oh, you mean this this form? All right. There you go. So anything else? Any thoughts, comments, questions, reflections about that for yourself? This, what it means to be truthful, to live in truthfulness. You also can type a question in the chat. Yeah. Linda Lee.
Hi. Thanks for that. How this has landed for me, it's timely, and it's like what's going on with me currently, and it's kind of like truthfulness and non-attachment, and when like it's really hard to practice that in the moment, and like when 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 people who left your life, like when an old boyfriend calls you and wants to have a relationship, but you know that that relationship wasn't, it's just not like a healthy relationship for you. So, but then you do want that connection. There is a connection there. And it's just navigating the healthier relationships and saying no to the ones that didn't work before. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard, but also, like I like this reminder. Like I like all the things that you're saying, because it's a good reminder for me in like what's going on in my life today that's kind of shaking me on the inside, because there is grasping around wanting to have a friendship and wanting to have a close relationship that I once had with this person. And now, that door is kind of open, but it's not, it just doesn't have the ease. And so there's wisdom there. So like that's part of what the meditation and meditating and using the principles and, the wise mind. So that's what I wanted to share about, and what I wanted to thank you for the reminder for it, for that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great example of, what we might call inner truth. Like when you, like kind of what I was instructing in the, I'm not sure when you came into the meditation, but I was instructing in the meditation to kind of, can we tap into, can we land, can we rest in truthful recognition of our like wise self, of our own wisdom. I mean, that's what everything I think that the Buddha taught is pointing to, is can we cultivate and really refine our receptiveness or receptivity to with that wisdom, and that wisdom aligns with truth, and that there might be some commentary in our minds about how maybe we can make it work, or just the scenario that you kind of laid out around, an ex or somebody kind of contacting you from your past, and there's this gut feeling, sometimes we call it, right, of, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. But then the mind comes up with all kinds of stories, or, we may be feeling lonely, or, there's all of this kind of proliferation around maybe why that could be, it could work, and so to drop down, I think that's part of what this wisdom practice is to really drop into. And I know you can do this, we've talked about it, you're talking about it right now, dropping into what the wisdom self is saying, the wisdom mind is saying, maybe it's time to let this go, right? That it's not healthy, that it's not following the precepts, that it's for whatever's coming up for you. And that, I feel like that's like the truthfulness, the lack of self-deception. To me, that's huge. Like that whole, just the idea that we deceive ourselves all the time, that we're constantly deceiving ourselves. And part of that, I think, is when we maybe move into not listening to our gut, not listening to that inner truth. When we get quiet, which is what I love about meditation, when we get quiet and we focus in on something like the breath or the body, and then one of those thoughts pops in, the wisdom mind is maybe strengthened enough to go like, yeah, probably not a good idea, and also that's when, talking with somebody else or having a wise friend, or a teacher can also be useful.
Right. And it's also like, also the truth is like also saying, I don't think we should really talk anymore. Like, thanks for like sending me a message, and maybe thanks for reaching out, but I think what you're wanting, I can't give to you. And so like you were also talking about being honest, and I kind of feel like that's really important for me too, because I want to live in honesty and I want to live in truth. Um and it does hurt when I get contacted from him. So also to save myself from future suffering or pain that might, that does arise when I've gotten contacted by this person. So I think it's like I need to just find the strength to somehow boldly say thanks, but like I'm gonna, like, no thanks, don't contact me. And maybe I owe it to myself to even, I don't even want to block, but maybe like just like protect myself from future contact. But
Yeah. Well, I trust, Linda Lee, that you'll make sounds like you're on that track of coming to, not deceiving yourself, and being honest with others, and also setting boundaries to protect your, health, your well-being. So good for you. Yeah. Right on. Yeah. That's, I feel like, more and more, I feel like this practice is about kind of trusting that more and more, just like trusting the teachings more and more, trusting the practice more and more. Even at some point, I mean, I used to say, and maybe some of you can relate to this, that my mind is like living in a bad neighborhood, like it's not trustworthy. I have to constantly be on guard. Or, like my mind is not a friend. And I think through this practice, that changes. And especially as we begin to see the ways in which we, kind of create stories, and follow through with, habits that are conditions, that are not me, that are not mine. It's like, oh, this is a conditioned pattern of anger, or, oh, this is a conditioned pattern of seeking, adventure, novelty, right? Or this is a continued pattern, or a habit of mind of seeking pleasurable experiences, and then getting kind of caught in these loops that we've been, programmed. We've been programming ourselves through the causes and conditions of our lives, and that when we begin to see that, it again, we come out of the denial, where we start to break the that self-deception, and then we have that truthful recognition, which is kind of what you just said out loud to everyone in the group. So thanks for that. Anyone else? Questions, clarity, what's become true for you? What's true for you about this?
Hello, everybody. I'm Hiram, and
Yeah.
it was, when it comes to the meditation, every time I meditate, there's always some kind of revelation for me. And then when we focus in on certain aspects of the meditation, and I tell you what, when I was first introduced to Buddhism, it almost seems so easy to do, and and the more I dig into it, the bigger the list gets. There's a sub list to the sub list, which there's another list, which is good for me because it adds it. It's not so difficult once you start peeling the layers. You know what I mean? Because the mind, the body, the whole experience is about layers, and identifying those layers, it's kind of revealing for me, because it's not just black and white anymore. And when you come down to getting, a good definition of truthfulness, there's layers to truthfulness, like the outside and the inside, and then perception truthfulness, social truthfulness, there's a lot of layers. So when I try to identify those, it's good for me when I get into the meditation mode where I'm by myself, after soaking up all the perceptions from the outside, the inside, my experiences, and then to find a truth to each of those layers. It's profound for me. It's pretty deep. So thank you for that. And all these talks, it's just I'm starting to not figure out myself. I'm trying, it's more like, okay, I get that. I got a new name tag. Every day I meditate, I have to change my name tag, and I think, to me, that's pretty cool. So thank you all for being here. So today I got a new name tag. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, what I took from what you said, or this popped into my mind, one of my core teachers, Ajahn Pasanno, he once what I love about him, him and Ajahn Amaro they're like peers, but they're very different in their style and in their practice, and in their translation of Ajahn Chah's teachings. But he just basically, like, one time I was saying something similar to, like, the more is being revealed, right? There's these lists, and that it's like, it seemed simple in the beginning, and and then, just follow the breath, and and body awareness, and then having some experiences. And then the more and more I kind of dug into it, the deeper and deeper the understanding was, but also just like, where does this end? Like, where does it end? And he just said, yeah, the Dharma, simple and deep. That's it. Simple and deep. And that's stuck with me, because also Joseph Goldstein, one time I was talking, we were at some big Buddhist conference in New York, and there was we were having a round table about these, like, lofty discussions about karma and afterlife and all this kind of stuff. And And he was like, you know, at one point it's like this, I came to the realization that this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, he'd been practicing for 30 years and, you know, meditating and, you know, deep, you know, meditative states. And he's like, and there just, it just doesn't end. There's just more and more and more. And just part of that is, I think, being receptive to not knowing, you know, to just being more and more open to what we can all realize for ourselves. You know, so thanks for saying that. Simple and deep.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, man. Mike, go ahead.
To stay on that track of there's so much, and there's so much substantial, like there's so much, like I've said this before, I don't feel like there's no plateau or ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most exciting things in my experience so far, is that in the meditation, there are insights, and, you know, there's various feeling tones, and, you know, when you're mindful of the body or mindful of the breath or feeling tone, it reminds me of something like I read from Ajahn Chah. It's like, if you're mindful and you practice mindfulness as much as you can, it's all Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is, like, on the cushion, awake, in the car, at work, like your whole experience, if you're mindful, just becomes Dharma. And one of the things, like the meditation for me tonight was really difficult because I had, you know, some bad memories come up, and you know, I had some aversive feeling tone, but something popped in my mind. I don't know if I heard it here or somewhere else, like all mind states are workable.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, you know, went back to breath and tried to get more spacious and receptive and present, and just name that. That's an aversive response. That's an unpleasant feeling, you know. And then you talked about Ajahn Amaro when you mentioned Ajahn Pasanno earlier. Like, he has a great guided meditation on YouTube from some retreat from 2013 called Letting Go. And I've listened to it a lot, you know. And one of the things that always sticks out to me in that meditation: a thought is just a thought, a feeling is just a feeling, a mood is just a mood. It's impermanent. It's going to come, it's going to go. You know, if I don't like cling, crave, like latch onto it and try to like hold on to it, if I just let it go, I'm going to be all right. And that's the best thing for me about how substantial Dharma is and how much there is to gain insight on or learn. It's like, there's no ceiling, you know. It's like, I'll be really honest here. If it was all neat and in a box and that's it, okay, see you later. Like, I'm not going to be meditating anymore. Like, I got it, you know, like, but I swear, and someone, I think it may have been you, Jason, like, well, somebody mentioned that every meditation, like, there's just some difference or feeling tone or variable or insight or something that is different from the one before. And that's what just keeps me intrigued and excited and ardent and like remaining teachable and not clinging to fixed views. That's the best thing about the Dharma, is that I came to the front door like spiritually bankrupt, fucked up, you know, train wreck, you know, and the Dharma gave me like a way to live, like the showed me the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts. And although I was very skeptical and like it was all counterintuitive, I gave myself to it, and so far it hasn't let me down at all. And one more thing, I know I've gone on too long. I always do. Sorry. But not clinging to fixed views and staying open-minded and teachable and like spacious and open to insight and open to a different point of view, or I guess having acceptance for like impermanence and all those things is just so much better than what I brought to the door at Dharma. Like, just in the past, I would get overwhelmed by the enormity of something like the Dharma and how much it has. But I think now instead I have a different way of approaching it, is just give myself to it, be in the present moment. Like Rachel says this a lot, present, non-judgmental, present time, like kind awareness. Like if you're in the now and you're staying mindful of what you're doing, you're not in the past or in the future. So I went on too long, maybe went on a tangent, but I'm fired up as always. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah. So we're just about out of time. Yeah, I feel like just kind of, can we be receptive to what is truthfulness to you? Like, what does it mean to be truthful to your intention, or the truest intention, and to just, like maybe bring that in sometimes as a meditation, setting an intention to be as truthful to yourself, and to also, to admit when we fall short of our ideal, and that's okay. And that's just part of the process. And with each breath, each moment, we can begin again. I love that. So thank you for your time and attention. Please know that anything that you can donate to our center helps us keep the doors open, even though there's no one there. And we will be again. And the 26th, we're having a day long on Zoom. Come for any part of it. You can go to Against the Stream and you can register. You can get the link from Rebel Saints Buddhist Meditation Society. Yeah, you can donate to us by going to the link that's below. Or wait. Oh yeah, so Mike put them down there. So great. Yeah, so againstthestream.com/donations for those of you at home. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And let's just, take a moment to just recognize the power that the truth of the Dharma can hold and can reveal. And that we do this practice not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all beings, as an act of loving kindness and generosity. May I be free from suffering, and may all beings be free from suffering. And may any goodness be dedicated to that point of freedom from suffering for all beings.